Are you tired of chasing after happiness like it's some distant goal that's always just out of reach? What if I told you that the key to lasting happiness isn't some grand secret or a life hack, but a simple, pragmatic shift in mindset? Let me be clear. Happiness isn't something you find or wait for. It's something you build. And I know what you're thinking. That sounds too easy, too simple. But trust me, this is where the magic happens. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build a pragmatic mindset that doesn't rely on external circumstances, and how to start taking control of your happiness in a way that's practical, real, and within your reach. If you're ready to stop waiting for happiness to magically appear and start making it happen on your own terms, then stick with me, because the tools and insights I'm about to share will change the way you approach life. Stay tuned, because your happiness is waiting for you, and it's way closer than you think. Number 1, ditch passion, follow profit. They lied to us. All those motivational speeches, those Hollywood montages, those Instagram quotes, they all told us the same thing. Follow your passion and the money will follow. Sounds inspiring, right? But let's be real. How many people do you know who are following their passion and still struggling to pay their bills? Passion is great, but you can't deposit it in a bank account. And before you say, "But I want to do what I love," hear me out, because I'm about to flip the script on everything you've been told. We've all been there, sitting at our desks, scrolling through social media, seeing someone claim they turned their passion into a six-figure business, while we're stuck in a job we barely tolerate. It's frustrating. It makes you question your life choices. You start thinking, maybe I should quit everything and open that cozy little cafe in the mountains. Or maybe I should become a travel vlogger, even though I've never held a camera before. We romanticize passion, believing it's the key to happiness. But what we often forget is this. Happiness doesn't come from passion alone. It comes from control, stability, and freedom. And guess what gives you that? Money. So here's the unconventional truth. Don't follow your passion, follow profit. Find something you're good at, something people are willing to pay for, and make that your vehicle to financial freedom. Once you have money, you can buy time. And when you have time, then you can chase passion without the anxiety of wondering how you'll afford rent. Think about it. Would you rather be broke and passionate, or financially stable with the ability to explore your passions stress-free? That's not selling out. That's playing smart. I learned this lesson the hard way. A few years ago, I was obsessed with the idea of making a living doing what I loved. I poured my heart into projects that felt meaningful but didn't pay the bills. Meanwhile, I watched my friend, who had zero passion for his job, quietly stack his earnings. He focused on what worked, not what made him feel warm and fuzzy inside. And you know what? A few years later, he had the financial freedom to do whatever he wanted, while I was still stuck in the cycle of chasing passion with empty pockets. That's when it clicked. I didn't need to abandon my dreams. I just needed a strategy that funded them. This isn't about killing passion. It's about being smart with it. Passion is a luxury that's best enjoyed when your basic needs are met. So build the foundation first. Choose a skill or industry that pays well. Get really, really good at it. Stack your money. Then, and only then, let passion come into the picture, on your terms. This isn't about settling. It's about winning the long game. So the next time someone tells you to just follow your passion, smile and nod. Because you'll know something they don't. Passion doesn't pay the bills. Profit does. And once you have profit, you can afford to do whatever the hell you want. Number 2, be selfish first, then generous. You've been told 1,000 times to be selfless, right? You've heard it in every motivational speech, every self-help book, and even your grandma probably reminded you to always think of others first. But here's the truth that's rarely spoken. Sometimes you need to be selfish first, before you can truly be generous. I know, it sounds counterintuitive, but trust me, there's a reason behind it. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, "Here we go, another selfish advice guru," let me explain. You see, we live in a world where we're constantly told to put others' needs before our own. But here's the problem. How can you pour from an empty cup? How can you give love, time, energy, or money if you don't have it in the first place? It's like trying to share food when you're starving. It just doesn't work. You know the type. You've probably been that type too. The person who stretches themselves thin, saying yes to everyone, and then ends up feeling drained and resentful. We've all been there, right? That moment when you've given so much of yourself, only to realize you've got nothing left. And guess what? When you're running on empty, your generosity starts to feel forced, and your relationships start to feel like obligations. That's not generosity. That's exhaustion disguised as kindness. Here's the twist. Being selfish first means taking care of your own needs and well-being before you turn your attention to others. It's about prioritizing your health, your happiness, and your financial security. It's the idea that you can't help others from a place of scarcity. You have to fill your own cup first. Then, when you're full, you can share with others without feeling resentful or burned out. That's the real power of generosity. It comes from abundance, not obligation. Let me give you a real-life example. A few months ago, I was juggling multiple projects, one for work, one for a side hustle, and one personal commitment to help a friend with their business. I was saying yes to everything, trying to be the good friend and reliable employee, all while feeling drained and unappreciated. One night, I snapped. I realized that I hadn't spent a single evening focusing on my own growth or doing something I truly loved. It hit me. I wasn't selfish enough. I needed to take a step back. So I did. I cleared my schedule for a few days, worked on my own projects, got some much-needed rest, and came back recharged. You know what happened? I was able to give even more to my friend, my work, and myself, because I was coming from a place of strength, not exhaustion. This isn't about being selfish in a toxic way. It's about recognizing your own worth and making sure you're solid before you try to help anyone else. You're not doing anyone any favors if you're constantly running on empty. It's about taking time for your own mental, emotional, and physical health. When you do that, you have more to offer. This is about reclaiming your space, your peace, and your dignity. It's about setting boundaries that protect your energy. It's about learning that your needs are just as important as anyone else's. You have a right to prioritize yourself, because let's be real, if you're not happy, healthy, and secure, you can't give your best to others. So the next time someone asks for your help, remember, be selfish first, then generous. Fill your own cup until it overflows, and when it does, pour into others. Your generosity will be rooted in strength, not burnout, and that's the kind of generosity that truly makes a difference. Number 3, cut ties with perpetual complainers. Let's be honest, you're not obligated to listen to people who are always complaining. Sounds harsh, right? But stay with me, because this might be the most freeing advice you've heard in a while. Now you might be thinking, but what about my friend who's always venting? Or, what about my family member who's constantly upset? I get it. You're a caring person. You want to help. But here's the thing. The more you listen to negativity, the more it consumes your own energy. We've all been there, stuck in conversations where every word out of someone's mouth is a complaint about work, life, or people. And don't get me wrong, we all need to vent sometimes. Life can be frustrating, but there's a difference between venting and being a perpetual complainer. You know the type. Someone who's constantly dissatisfied, who always has something to gripe about. You start dreading those phone calls or family gatherings because you know it's just going to be one long rant. It's draining, And what's worse, it can start to affect your own mindset. Here's where it gets a little tough, but hear me out. Cut ties with the perpetual complainers. I don't mean completely shut them out of your life, but be selective about how much mental space you give them. Set boundaries around how much negativity you allow in. When you're around someone who's always complaining, it becomes hard to stay optimistic and focused on your own goals. Think about it. Every time you listen to them, it's like you're letting their energy invade your own. Let me tell you about a time I experienced this firsthand. A few years ago, I had a friend who would constantly call me, unloading every frustration in their life. Work sucked, relationships were falling apart, everything was just the worst. At first, I played the supportive friend, listening, offering advice, trying to fix things. But after a while, I started noticing something strange. I felt drained after every conversation. I'd be exhausted, mentally foggy, and less motivated to work on my own goals. It wasn't just that I was listening to complaints. It was that I was taking them on as my own. I was internalizing their frustration, and it was holding me back. So, I made a choice. I stopped answering those calls every time. I set boundaries and began to steer the conversations towards something more productive. And guess what? It was a game changer. This isn't about being cold-hearted or abandoning people in need. It's about recognizing that your energy is valuable. Protecting your mental space isn't selfish. It's essential for your personal growth. You can be there for people, but you don't have to carry their burdens. When you cut ties with the perpetual complainers, at least on a mental level, you're making room for positivity, focus, and a healthier mindset. Here's the thing, you're not a therapist. You don't have to listen to the same complaints day in and day out. You don't have to explain yourself or over-explain your boundaries. You have a right to protect your peace. And when you stop letting someone's negativity cloud your mind, you make space for the things that actually matter. Your goals, your happiness, your growth. So here's the takeaway. Cut ties with perpetual complainers. Protect your energy, your peace, and your productivity. Because when you do that, you make room for the people who lift you up, for the opportunities that excite you, and for the mindset that fuels your success. And trust me, your future self will thank you. Number 4, use people, but don't abuse them. Here's a thought that might make you raise an eyebrow. Use people, but don't abuse them. Now, before you jump to conclusions, hear me out. I know that sounds a little harsh, but it's not about manipulation or taking advantage. It's about understanding how to form healthy, mutually beneficial relationships. Yes, trust me on this. There's a huge difference between using someone for your benefit and making sure you both benefit from the relationship. Now, before you think, whoa, that sounds shady, let me explain. We all have needs, whether it's for support, advice, opportunities, or simply a helping hand. And there's nothing wrong with using people as a resource, just as they use us. But here's the catch. It's only fair if you're offering something in return. It's about give and take. If all you're doing is taking without giving back, that's where the line is crossed. That's when it goes from using to abusing. We've all been there. You know the type. Someone who asks for your time, energy, and favors. But when it's your turn, they're nowhere to be found. We've all experienced that gut punch feeling when you realize someone has been taking advantage of your kindness. It's frustrating, right? You put so much effort into helping someone, but when it's your turn to ask for something in return, crickets. That's not using people for mutual benefit. That's exploitation. Here's the strategy. Make sure that when you're using someone for your benefit, you're also looking out for theirs. It's about making sure the relationship feels balanced. And this doesn't mean just doing favors back in return. It's about respecting their time, energy, and needs. The most successful relationships, whether personal or professional, are built on understanding each other's value and being willing to reciprocate. Think of it as an exchange of value. Let me give you a real-life example. A while back, I was working on a project that required some expert knowledge in an area I wasn't well versed in. So I reached out to a friend who was a specialist. I asked for advice, guidance, and a bit of their time. But here's the thing. I didn't just take from them. I made sure I offered something in return. I gave them exposure in my network, offered my time to help with their own projects, and made sure they knew I appreciated them. We both benefited. It wasn't a one-sided deal, and that made all the difference. We were both happy to help each other out because we both felt valued. Here's where this can be emotionally empowering for you. You get to set the standard for your relationships. You get to decide how people treat you, and that starts with how you treat them. If you're always giving and never getting, you're not respecting your own value. And if you're just taking without giving back, you're not building relationships, you're building resentment. So, respect yourself and others enough to create a balanced dynamic. So here's the takeaway. Use people, but don't abuse them. Build relationships based on mutual respect, fairness, and value. When you're focused on reciprocity, not only will you achieve your goals, but you'll also build stronger, more meaningful connections. And remember, your space, your peace, and your dignity are non-negotiable. Keep them intact by treating others with the same respect and kindness you expect in return. Number 5. Embrace the good enough mentality. Here's a bold statement for you. Perfection is a trap. I know. It sounds like something you might read on a motivational poster, but hear me out. We've all been taught that everything has to be perfect, that if we don't get it just right, we've somehow failed. But what if I told you that being good enough is actually the key to freedom? Now, you might be thinking, wait, what? Good enough? Isn't that settling? Yes, trust me on this. It's not settling. It's setting yourself up for success. You've probably been there, right? You've spent hours, maybe days, working on something, tweaking every detail, trying to make it flawless. And what happens? You end up burnt out, frustrated, and wondering if it's really even worth it. Or worse, you put off finishing because you're too scared it won't be perfect. We've all fallen into that all-or-nothing mindset at some point. You know the type. The person who believes if they can't do it perfectly, they'd rather not do it at all. It's exhausting. Here's the twist. Perfection doesn't exist. Seriously. No matter how hard we try, we'll never reach it, and chasing it only holds us back. Instead, embrace the idea that good enough is, in fact, enough. The idea isn't to settle for mediocrity. It's about acknowledging that progress beats perfection every time. If you wait for everything to be perfect, you'll be waiting forever. And guess what? Life doesn't wait. You can sit there refining and tweaking, or you can take action, mess up, learn, and improve as you go. It's about movement, not stagnation. I'll give you a real-life example. There was this one project I was working on, a big video edit for a client, and I was absolutely obsessed with getting every single frame perfect. I spent so much time refining little details, adjusting transitions, and even debating whether the music choice was just right. It reached the point where I was seriously considering going back for a 4th round of edits, but I stopped myself. Good enough was good enough. I decided to send it off. You know what happened? The client loved it. They didn't notice the tiny imperfections I was obsessing over. In fact, they were more focused on the overall impact of the video. And that was a massive wake-up call for me. I realized that perfectionism was just a way to delay progress, not improve the final outcome. Here's the emotional payoff for you. Letting go of perfection gives you back your time, energy, and peace of mind. Instead of constantly worrying that your work won't measure up, you can focus on the bigger picture, on growing, learning, and moving forward. This isn't about lowering standards. It's about choosing to prioritize your well-being over unrealistic expectations. So when you're feeling overwhelmed by the need to get everything perfect, remind yourself, it's good enough, and it's more than enough to move forward. So, here's the takeaway. Embrace the good enough mentality. It's your permission slip to stop obsessing over details that won't even matter in the grand scheme of things. It's about releasing the weight of perfectionism and reclaiming your space, your peace, and your dignity. So, what are you waiting for? You've got this. Good enough is more than good enough to make things happen. Number 6. Quit the find your purpose myth. Here's a hard truth for you. The whole find your purpose thing is a myth. I know. It's something we've all been told, right? That we're supposed to discover this one true calling, a singular purpose that gives our life meaning. It's supposed to be this light bulb moment, a grand epiphany that brings everything into focus. But guess what? You don't need a singular purpose to live a meaningful life. Yes, trust me on this. We've all been there, right? You hit a certain age and suddenly everyone's asking, what's your purpose? What do you want to do with your life? It's like we're expected to have some magical answer that explains everything. And when you can't find that answer, you start to feel lost or like you're not living up to expectations. But here's the thing. We're not all supposed to have one grand purpose. Life isn't that simple. So why are we still buying into this myth? Let me offer you a different perspective. What if there isn't just one purpose? What if life is about embracing different paths, exploring new opportunities, and understanding that purpose can evolve over time? The truth is, purpose isn't a destination, it's a journey. The mistake we make is thinking there's this one moment or achievement that will give our lives meaning. Instead, it's the little things we do, the way we show up, the impact we have on others. That's what gives our lives purpose. I'll tell you from experience, for the longest time, I was stuck in the cycle of trying to figure out my one true purpose. I thought I needed to have a clear, defined path, something that would make sense of everything. And honestly, I felt the pressure. Friends, family, society, all asking, what's next for you? It wasn't until I stepped back and realized that I was already living with purpose. My purpose wasn't tied to one job, one passion, or one achievement. It was in the moments when I was present with people I loved, when I helped a friend, or when I tried something new that challenged me. And the beauty of it? It wasn't static. My purpose shifted and grew with me. Let me ask you this. What if your purpose is just to live, to try, and to be curious? What if your purpose is to live authentically, explore, and grow without waiting for some grand revelation? There's power in releasing the pressure of trying to find something that might never come, and instead just allowing life to unfold, knowing that each experience shapes you and adds meaning in its own way. You're not behind. You're right where you need to be, figuring it out in real time. So here's the truth. You don't need to find some hidden purpose. Your life is already meaningful. You're already living with purpose, whether you realize it or not. The key is to stop waiting for the perfect moment and start embracing the moments as they come. Your space, your peace, and your dignity are already yours. You just have to let go of the myth that there's one grand purpose waiting to be discovered. And trust me, once you do that, life becomes a lot more freeing, a lot more exciting, and a lot more you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video helped you see that happiness isn't some elusive thing we have to chase, but a mindset we can actively build. If you found this valuable, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. It really helps out. And if you want more content like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an update. Also, share this video with someone who could use a little extra dose of happiness or a shift in perspective. It might just be the nudge they need. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. What are some ways you've started building your own happiness, or any challenges you've faced in trying to stay positive? Let's create a community where we support each other in taking control of our happiness. Remember, happiness is yours to build, one thought, one choice, one moment at a time. Take that mindset with you today, and I'll see you in the next one.